Hi, good afternoon. Hello? Everyone hear me? Yeah, cool. Good afternoon. Last one before lunch, so we'll shoot through. Last one before lunch, but also it's incredibly interesting because the best thing in the world is to watch other brands do something terribly wrong and then watch the reaction to it. So we're going to have a bit of fun with it. The things to note is we're going to go through a few different examples of how social media has gone wrong for brands, and then see how those brands have reacted to it. Now, invariably, if you're on social media, at some point something will go wrong, and it's how you react to it that will decide how people judge you. So, why do some social media accounts generate headlines for the wrong reasons? Sometimes it's just because of really, really terrible account management and a lack of understanding of what is acceptable and what is not. An example from locally, I don't know if any of you remember this one. Do raise the price of its packages without telling anyone, and then automatically subscribe people to the new packages at a higher rate. So one of the users complained, and Do's response would say, hey, if you don't like our services, you can cancel at any of the stores. Now, obviously, the problem with that is that being in the UAE, you can't just cancel at any of the stores and go to another provider because some areas only have Do support. So that generated an awful lot of chat on Twitter. Do responded actually quite promptly and very well. They admitted their culpability, and they let the whole of Twitter know that the person who had been handling the account would no longer be allowed anywhere near it. Now, sometimes it's because you haven't checked who has access to your social media account before you start making changes in-house. So HMV is a chain of retail stores in the UK that dealt with music, DVDs, books, and so forth. So attracting quite a youngish audience, quite a young crowd, very social media savvy. Unfortunately, due to the downturn, they started doing some restructuring. So they pulled a lot of their employees in headquarters into the room and started making layoffs. Now, what they didn't pay attention to was the fact that one of the people in the room where they were making the layoffs was actually in charge of their Twitter account. And what this person did was take over the Twitter account, which had 64,000 followers, and start telling the world what was going on. 60 of us being fired at once, mass execution of loyal employees who loved the brand, HMV X Factor firing. And they then went on to detail exactly what was happening. With my own personal favorite, just overheard our marketing director ask, how do I shut down Twitter? So this is clearly a massive failure in-house to account for who is holding the keys to the bank. Now, they responded relatively quickly, and they took back control of the account. And one thing that they did that was quite savvy was they actually used the same hashtag that the employee had been using. So a lot of people had started following this hashtag and commenting and leaving lots of negative responses to HMV. So to get in on that conversation, they used the same hashtag. And then they used the more emotive hashtag after that, Save HMV, to try and say, hey, you know, bad things are happening, but it's not really our fault, we're one of you. Ultimately, it wasn't hugely successful, but it was quite a quick response to a crisis they hadn't anticipated. Now, sometimes it's not something that's happening on your brand pages, but it is something that's being done by an employee that's associated with your brand. And I'm sure most of us will remember this one. Someone who works for your company puts out a really, really stupid tweet. Going to Africa, hope I don't get AIDS, just kidding, I'm white. Now, clearly, that was an incredibly poorly taste thing to put out. But she then compounded it because she sent this just before she got onto a flight. Now, for those of you that remember the story, she tweeted this. She then got on a 12-hour flight from London to Johannesburg. During that time, people picked up on the tweet, and the tweet went viral. Now, you'll notice that she has almost 2,700 retweets and 1,200 favorites. This is on an account that when she started had approximately 500 followers. So it wasn't a huge account, and it was her personal account. And all it takes is for a couple of people to cotton onto it and start retweeting it, and there's nothing Twitter loves more than jumping on a bandwagon. So while she was on her flight, mentions of her went from 0 to 48,776 replies to that one tweet. And a hashtag was created, and the hashtag was, "Has Justine landed yet?" Because what Twitter loved about this story was the fact that the whole world was talking about it, and she was completely oblivious. So she tweeted and got on the flight, and during that time, almost 100,000 people were wondering what was going to happen to her when she got off the plane. And sure enough, she got off the plane, there was news outlets, there was TV cameras, there was media. She had no idea what was going on. She got her phone, got the news, and then scurried off. Obviously, in this case, the tweet was so bad and so poorly taste that she was actually let go by her company. Perhaps the most surprising aspect of this story is that actually, she's a communications professional. She handled the corporate communications for a very large agency in New York, which just goes to show that even the experts can get it horrendously wrong sometimes. In line with the same thing, just because a lot of people are talking about something on Twitter doesn't mean that you should automatically use a hashtag to try and jump on a bandwagon. This social media, and Twitter in particular, is not a case of any news is good news. GoGo is a service that offers in-flight Wi-Fi. So their response to our friend Justine's tweet was, next time you plan to tweet something stupid before you take off, make sure you're on an @GoGo flight. Because they're thinking, well, if she'd had Twitter, she'd been able to respond, so this is a great marketing opportunity for us. Obviously, the retweets from that were not necessarily retweets in a positive manner, and they got absolutely slammed. So they had to come out with, apologize for your tweet, right or wrong, it's not a policy to engage, we clearly need a review. Now, this is a very good response, because actually, they're admitting that they got the wrong end of the stick, they shouldn't have jumped on it, and they're going to look at their policies. Now, this is also quite good. So we've had cases of wrong people having access to the accounts, people that companies didn't know having access to the accounts being able to tweet. We've had ridiculous tweets from employees. But things can also go wrong when they're part of a carefully thought out marketing plan. And this is one of the inherent dangers. It's very difficult to second guess how things that you put on social media are going to be met by the general public. Kellogg's UK had a fantastic initiative called Give a Child a Breakfast. And basically what they were doing was they were supporting children in deprived areas by giving them breakfast when they got to school. Nothing wrong with that. It's a great CSR initiative. Executives are high-fiving themselves. This is brilliant. Twitter's going to love this. So this is the tweet they put out. 1 retweet equals 1 breakfast for a vulnerable child. What can go wrong with that? That's absolutely fantastic. Surely everyone's going to love us. However, not everyone did love it. And the general reaction was much the same as this bottom tweet. Okay? Within 2 hours, they had over 1,000 negative responses to the tweet. Sorry, for those at the back that can't see, at Kellogg's UK, you sick something. If you have the capability to feed vulnerable children and do so, this is sickening. Okay, so Twitter did not like that, generated a lot of negative publicity, completely threw their CSR program out the window. Kellogg's apologized, but their first apology, the following day, was kind of half-hearted. We apologize for the recent tweet, wrong use of words, it's deleted. Wrong use of words, not everyone thought so. So if you're going to apologize, you have to do it properly. Which they then did the following day, we accept full responsibility. But that's what they should have done 2 days previously, which would have capped the story. So key takeaways. Be careful who has access to your accounts, and that you trust them. Make sure your employees are issued with an understanding of social media policy, and that they understand the dangers of thoughtless posting on Twitter. Run your planned digital campaigns through audience test panels and get a second opinion. Admit culpability promptly. Apologize if you're in the wrong. Be transparent and respond to genuine grievances. And absolutely, absolutely try and take any issue offline as quickly as possible. And the reason that you have to take any issue offline as quickly as possible is because while social media is absolutely fantastic for getting the word out, and it gives you exposure to an enormous audience, if you don't take things offline as quickly as possible, more people will talk about it. And the more people talk about it, the more it'll appear in Google searches. And Google remembers absolutely everything. And this next example, I'm sure most of you have seen. I'm not going to feature the actual tweet in question, but just to illustrate, US Airways, as soon as you start typing in US Airways into Google with a predictive search, you only need to get halfway, and the fourth thing that comes down is US Airways tweet. And if you type in the whole of US Airways and then you start with a T, you get 33 million results. And while the first one might be to the US Airways Twitter handle, the vast majority of the rest of them will be what exactly that tweet was, which I'll let you find out for yourselves if you don't know. It's horrendous. I don't recommend it before lunch. Right. Any questions?
You need to give them 5 minutes of minute checking.
Yeah, right. I'm getting off the stage before people look at that quick. No? Thank you very much.
Hey, sorry, just one question.
Sorry, I'm back.
Just on the last point, basically taking it offline. Obviously, there's a few things that you can take offline. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of stuff you just can't take offline.
Yeah.
There's not much you can do in that case, I would assume. Just wait it out.
Yeah, wait it out. But I mean, the important thing that people are going to be looking at is what was your reaction in the first place.
Yep.
And if people see that you're kind of apologizing, you admit your mistake if you've made a mistake, and that you're handling the situation in a sensitive manner,
yep,
they'll actually give you a lot of leeway. It's where people will see that you're either ignoring the responsibility and just trying to avoid the problem, put your head in the sand, that's when it'll get on.
All right, no problem.
Thank you.